Goonhammer has partnered with Legalized Mischief to present you with Colin Ward's long-form painting videos. Like and subscribe, and follow Legalized Mischief and Goonhammer for more hobby tutorials.
Hey everyone, it's Colin with Legalized Mischief Productions. Thank you for joining me and welcome. And today, very special day, we are returning to epic scale, 8mm scale, Horus Heresy. And we're starting on another Trader Legion, this time the Thousand Sons, Magnus the Red's Legion of Space Wizards. And before we get any further, Magnus absolutely did so many things wrong. But, hot take, I know. So, this one's going to be a bit of an adventure and kind of tricky. And if it works, it's going to be so cool. If it doesn't work, that's okay too. But, I hope it works, because that would just be rad. Or let's see what happens. Let's give it a try. So, first things first, we are going to try and do some marble on this tiny ass tank. So, what we're going to need is baby white. I've done a couple tutorials on this, but I'm going to keep doing them because it's hard. So, these are Pampers Sensitive, fragrance-free baby wipes. These are the best brand that I've found to use. I've used a couple other brands and they did not work this well. So Pampers Sensitive is my recommended brand. These tanks are very small, so I'm just going to cut a couple of little squares out of one wipe, because that is all I will need for our purposes today. And the rest of this wipe, seriously, one packet of wipes will last you for, unless you're, Metters Miniatures or something, you paint like 17 Horus Heresy armies a year. One packet of wipes will last you a lifetime. Primed black, white paint over the top. I hate white primer, so I do it the hard way, but I hate white primer. So I just think it looks like shit, so I don't do it. So we're going to do, the order of operations here is going to be gold, and then the marbling, then we're going to gloss varnish that, we're going to mask it, and then we're going to do the candy. So this is going to be an adventure, and I hope it works. We're going to do a candy red over gold to get what I hope is a nice Horus Heresy Thousand Sons era student. So this is Viking gold from scale 75. The writing's rubbed off, but you can trust me. It is Viking gold. It's a dark reddish gold. So that's the only areas that I really want to do marbling. I don't really want to fuck with this front part here very much. I have good stencils for this Legion. So I can just put a nice stencil there. Some that was a lot of paint. Some Legions, it's worth it. Some Spartans, it's worth it. If you're doing a Command Spartan, First Company, whatnot. Joe Schmo Spartan, I'm not interested in getting bogged down, especially with how we're going to be doing like the candy red and stuff. This is the first time really kind of doing this, so I don't want to get bogged down in I don't want to add too many variables, and that is like a pretty significant variable. I was hitting it with some air to kind of dry it out. I'm actually going to hit it with a hair dryer, so give me 1 second. Okay. Next up, Scale 75 Dwarven Gold, also missing its label, but it's not, they're very different. It's not hard to tell which one's which. But this is the other warm. This is the lighter warm gold. So we'll do this kind of in the bottom half there. If I had done just the Dwarven Gold, it would have been too bright after the white, so I needed to give it kind of a more of a base coat.
When I hit 2 of them, no, I'm just going to need one like that, like this stuff times.
All right. This is the fun part. This is where it gets a little dicey. Aged white. Bottle air. Is that dry? Dry enough. Okay. So, when we are stretching, I grab kind of with my fingers like this, and I go wiggle, 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 wiggle. Now you can see that texture start to kind of reveal itself. Now I switch the other direction. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. And now we're starting to see some daylight through the baby wipe. Switch it again. Wiggle, wiggle. Switch it again. Wiggle, wiggle. Now we really have some daylight. We can see the Spartan kind of behind there, right? Then when I put it over the gold and pull, you can see the marbling effect through the wipe. You can see the veining through the white. So look, you can see the gold, right? What we see from the gold is going to be the white part. The veining is going to come from the rest of the white that obviously is covered up. I don't think we can do both sides at the same time because I want to concentrate on one side at a time without worrying about the other side. So I'm going to do one side, and if it works, I'll just do the other side off camera. So, or I'll just do it twice because it's hard. This is hard. This is not easy to do. If I make it look easy, I apologize in advance. So make sure that's snug. Feels pretty snug. And then the first pass is just like that. I don't want too much paint going through there. Fuck that. Pull. 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 Pull it here. Pull it out. See the door through there? That's good. Quick little of the aged white. Put it back down. One of the nice things is that the paint will actually help the... This is a little risky. That's just kind of rushing a little bit, but I don't want to do like 4 paint changes in the next 2 minutes. So I'm just choosing to do the one. AK white, doesn't really matter which white. I like airbrushing AK. I think it airbrushes really well. So in that sense, it does matter, but mix it with a little water. Nice consistency, not too thin, because if it's too thin, it's not going to, marble that well. So come back here. Again, just make sure everything's where it's left it. And I'm going to peek under here to see. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe a little heavy on the white, but not too bad. White's a little thin. So that was less heavy on the white. And I think that looks fine too. You know, at this scale, I think that's pretty good at this scale. I'm happy with that. I know I said I was going to varnish it, but I think I'm going to pass on the varnish. I just don't think it's necessary. So I am going to hit this with the hairdryer, so just give me a minute. Whew. Okay, so now that I am coming down off that emotional high of having fucking pulled that off somehow, it's hard. You know, it's hard. Marble is hard. The baby white method is hard. I've done a fair bit of it at this point, after doing a lot of it on my Blood Angels. I've done a fair bit of it. So I'm pretty comfortable doing it. It's hard. So practice, just practice. It's worth it when it works. So this is like, do I have thinner? I think I have thinner electricity. Okay. Ooh, this might be too thin. This is like 2 millimeter, and I think this is 6. So I think I want like 4 millimeter tape. I don't want 6. 6 is too wide. I tried doing it on another, I think on the Iron Warrior Spartan, and it just didn't look good. So I might just cut this in half. I just want a little strip of marble down the middle, but I want it enough to be left that it's identifiable as marble, if that makes sense. I need some kind of straight edge. I should probably invest in like an actual straight edge at some point. Yeah. Okay. So probably like half, I think will be good. So maybe 3 millimeter tape. I think that's going to be like a little less than one of these boxes tall. I can always trim, so I'm just going to cut out, a centimeter sized strip. Pick it up. God. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be enough. I think that's going to be too small. Let's try this again. It's easier having that reference line right there, knowing that's straight. I just cut and do like a third and leave 2/3 on the other side. So this would be like 4 millimeter wide. There we go. That's a much more balanced width. Now this piece has to hold through some shit, so I want to center this up and nail it and then leave it alone. There we go. Okay. That's a good width. I like that width. So I'm going to want to cut that to length.
That is not far down enough. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Boom. Push down. Push down. Okay. That should be recognizable as marble, and it should be a nice just stripe down the middle of those doors. Perfect. Boom. Okay. Now, we pass, as Gilliman would say, from the practical to the theoretical. I don't know if this is going to work. Full disclosure. I don't know if this is going to work. This might end up looking like shit. Do I think it's going to work? Yeah, I think it'll work. Am I confident it'll work? I mean, yeah. Pretty confident. Have I done this before? No. So we're going to see. We'll see what happens. The only, shit. Roll those are not. Sorry. There's only one way to find out. So we'll try this out. So this is scale 75 decayed metal. Thinned down just a little bit with water. Just a little bit, not much. Coverage on this stuff is great. Gives us a nice dark metallic base to work off of for the fold. So cast shit in here. Easy. I just want to be mindful. I don't want to build a ton of paint around the tape, especially. That I think is going to be pretty unavoidable with this particular scheme that we're going to be doing. But I don't have to like force the issue, right? That's an attempt. Next up is going to be that Dwarven Gold again. Nice warm. Nice warm gold. And this we're just going to give kind of an overall. Another overall base coat, but we're not going to be as fastidious about it. We're not going to be as. We're going to leave, we're going to leave some shadows on the underside of things and the stuff of that nature. Let me tell you, 8mm scale Custodes all of a sudden calling my name. Look at that, beautiful. I think that's very good. That should have got in there. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to take a little bit of Moonstone Alchemy, which is a unique, very unique color. It's kind of a pinkish, orangish metallic. So like, back in the day, GW used to do, they had like purple pro tip. Don't squeeze harder. It never, ever ends in the perfect amount of paint coming out. Disaster is usually how it ends. So, or was just a ton of wasted paint. Anyway, this is kind of like a peach colored metallic. And then we'll just do this kind of in the, where I would normally highlight. We just want to give a little bit. I don't know if this will necessarily translate at the end, but I'll feel better having done it. So, we'll give it a shot. Why not? Okay. So you can see how it's lighter at the bottom there. Okay. Here's the part that, fingers crossed. So now I'm going to do a contrast red glaze over this to try and get that candy red of the Thousand Suns, and then try and figure out how to paint the rest of the model without fucking it. This will be, I'm gonna paint an Imperial Fist, so it's not that hard. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of weathering, I don't know what reactivates contrast. To be totally honest, I have not worked with contrast very much. So I know I'm going to give it a really good shake. Really good shake. Do I have anything around here that I could just spray with contrast, see what happens? Guinea pig models. Not really. Okay. So Blood Angels red seems like a good place to start. God, I mean, it looks like a good consistency already. I don't know how much of this contrast medium I'm really going to need. I mean, that looks good. That's definitely the right red. Definitely the right red. And I think more medium is better than less medium. I can always do multiple coats if this is too thin. So I'm going to put more medium in there. So that's still looking really saturated. So this thins down beautifully. I know I'm just coming to this very, very late. And probably plenty of other creators have already discovered the magic of contrast, glazing and blah, 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 whatever. But, that's fine. Okay. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, that's very nice. That's very nice. Okay. Here we go. Oh, that left. Yeah. I think this is going to work. So I'm being very cautious. Very, because I could see this could pool on me real quick. I'm sure. This probably takes fingerprints really nicely too. I can see if I get impatient or try and build this up too fast. I wonder how this varnishes. Look at that. That's a beautiful. Am I still? So definitely gonna satin varnish this whole tank. And get that nice candy shine working. I think matte varnish will just absolutely kill the finish for this tank. We're out. So let's get the last little bit here, because I think we're pretty close to where I want to be as far as this red goes. There's half and half, maybe contrast to medium. And obviously if I paint more of this, but that's a nice, oh shit. My thumb took off some. That is a nice looking finish. And I think if we satin varnish that, it'll really bring out that shine really, really, really nicely. What's going to be important right this second, though, is to get that tape off. I don't know exactly. Kind of how durable, exactly how that drying contrast is going to be affected, or is going to adhere to that tape. I'm just not sure. But let's get that tape off there, shall we? Put that off to the side. This glove's inside out, but I wanted to put a glove back on just because I don't want to. I don't even want to use that in the airbrush needle. Okay. Get an old airbrush needle. Yes. Yes. Look at that. Fuck yeah. Fuck yes. Ooh, this is not dry. Okay, so a little heavy on the paint right there. And we can see it sitting there, and it is not dry yet. But I'm still going for the marble. Fuck yeah, look at that. God, Epic is just... This is just too cool. Fuck yeah, that worked. Oh, man. I'm going to dry this with a hairdryer real quick, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so I just hit that with a little bit of the hairbrush to just make sure everything's just dry. And I don't know if it's just handling it during painting or kind of post-painting, but you can see paint kind of missing from the tracks, but that's fine. That's why I hold them by the tracks. While I'm painting them, the body panels look okay. Obviously did not get enough red back there, but that's fine for the test model. I'm not I'm not too worried about that, but I can see some contrast left in the cup over here, so I'm going to fix it real quick. Okay, so really that was going to bug me, and it was going to affect kind of what angles I was going to be able to take pictures at, and I had some contrast left in the salsa cup, so I just went ahead and, fixed that. Now I have some AK satin varnish, and I'm going to satin the hull. Get that nice shiny finish, and just give it some protection from handling. And then I'm going to let this sit at the very minimum, overnight before I do anything else with it. Being unfamiliar with contrast and just wanting to be extra careful. There's no real need to rush it. I have other things I can do. But that's a pretty nice candy red there for 1,000 Suns. That looks pretty good. Pretty good. Cool. All right. Let's have 1,000 Suns. I am absolutely overjoyed that works. That was so cool. So thank you for going through that with me. Thank you for your support. If you have any questions, please leave them below so everybody can see the answers. And when we come back, I will be posting the tracks and guns link in the description for this tutorial. I'm not going to do a separate tutorial for painting the tracks and guns on all of these Spartans. I'm going to film it once and link it for the other 17 tutorials because it's not important. It's the least important part of the whole scheme. I will do transfers and finishing touches and things like that, but I'm not going to film a separate track and gun kind of tutorial for every scheme. So when we come back, the tracks and the guns will be painted, and it'll be time to do the finishing touches. So with that, I love this hobby. I love when things work, and I love Horus Heresy. I love this game. So I'm going to be doing part 3 of the 8mm scale epic Horus Heresy tutorial series for the 1,000 Suns, the 15th Legion. Today we're going to be doing a few transfers and also a little weathering. Weathering on this is going to be a little bit different because it is that kind of shiny finish, but I'll show you how we'll tackle that. And as far as transfers go, if you're doing a project like this, or if you're doing a Horus Heresy project, really any Space Marine project, get the Forge World transfers. They are stunning. The quality is unparalleled, and they absolutely work at this scale. So you can see like the little XV, you can see these little, even those tiny little runes. You could easily cut a couple strips out of that. The suns, I mean, all this, it still works at this scale. So there is more than enough material to justify the price of the sheet. I would not tackle a Horus Heresy project without the transfers from Forge World. They're just that good. I'm not going to have them for all of these tutorials, but we do have them for 1,000 Suns. So off camera, I cut out a couple of the sun motif from Heresy 1,000 Suns. I don't know if it's going to show up over the marbling, because the marbling obviously is white, but we're going to try. My sense is it's not really going to show up, but that's okay. That is not the end of the world. It's just keep it in mind for later. Next time, maybe skip the marble and go just with the transfers next time for the next vehicle. I have a little XB here for the 15th Legion. That's going to go on this top hatch here. That's always a great spot for a little cheeky transfer. And then I have a little scarab whoops, little scarab design with the sun above it. And that's going to go right here on this front ramp. So those are common places to throw some transfers on a 28mm Spartan. This area in here is also a really good spot, but on this 3D print, the vents just take up the whole area. So other than that, there aren't a lot of viable real places other than like right below the guns here. You kind of have to pick or choose. You don't want to do both. And then, of course, over the door. But with this marbling, I don't know if that's going to work. If it doesn't work, small price to pay for that cool marble effect. So, whatever. The wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing about doing epic scale projects is I don't have to worry about, like, if I don't get to do everything on one Spartan, because I will probably have a ton of them. I'm probably going to have a bunch of Spartans. So it's not like in Heresy or even in 40K where, you know, 1, 2, maybe 3 Spartans at the most if you're really running a Spartan heavy list in Horus Heresy. But, you know, I might only get 1 Spartan, so I really want to make sure, you know, there's more pressure. 8mm scale Spartan, not so much. So now I'm going to grab this Liquitex Gloss Varnish. And I'm just going to gloss varnish the areas where I'm going to be putting on transfers. Nice coat. That will give a even, smooth space for the transfer to lay down and attach, and give just a very smooth surface for the transfer to work on, rather than, you know, a more matte surface. Micro set and micro sole, absolutely indispensable if you're going to be doing transfers by these, period. That's it. That's the whole spiel. If you're going to be doing transfers, buy them. This is just a brush I don't use for painting. It's a size 2 from Redgrass. And you can see, like, I've used this brush literally one time. And that's how it looks now. Yeah. But if you get it wet, it works. Oh, no. Oh, I dropped my hand in there. Okay, we're going to start off. I was. So we're going to put a little bit of the micro set to get the transfer to stick. And then this XV is actually on my hand because I laid my hand down on the transfers over there, which was foolish, but thankfully. So I'm just going to take it from the brush and just drop right down onto the micro set. I use a brush rather than like tweezers or something because it's soft and it's not going to tear the transfer. There we go. Little XV on the hatch. Now I'm just going to leave that alone. Come on the front here, front ramp. Grab that scarab. Center that up. Pretty close. There we go. So it's just a little scarab design. Doesn't have to be super crazy. Oftentimes less is more with transfers, depending on Legion, of course, but typically less is more. You can go over transfer. You can over transfer something really quick. I think that's okay. I think that looks. Yeah, you can't see that. I mean, you kind of can, but not really enough to justify. Wait, can't put it back there, can't put it down there, can't put it over there. We put it off center, but I mean, that would look a little weird. I guess it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be super visible. Oh, I folded it over. Now I'm in trouble. Shiza. Fuck. Well, if I fuck up this transfer, it's going to make the decision for me. I just mean, if that's like faint on there, that's not the end of the world. I'll just leave it. It's fine. And then a little bit more micro set. Center that transfer on there. Take off some of the excess. So like, you can see it on there. That's not bad. That's not terrible. We're going to take off some of that excess micro set. This stuff's going to evaporate really quick, so I'm going to do that. A little bit of micro soul to get it to really kind of form, softens the decal, kind of melts them a little bit, transfers, which this one's going to need because it's a little misshapen. And then we're going to let that work its magic, kind of evaporate. Then I'm going to take this damp paper towel. Let it work. Doesn't like, this is a flat surface, so it doesn't have to do too much. Very gently kind of press down. Very gently. Same thing here. Well, what is that? Is that a what? And then, of course, the same thing here. There we go. There we go. Transfers. They really aren't that easy. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another layer of gloss. And I do this to fill in. It kind of fills in around the edges of the transfer, but also what it does is for the next step, it gives an acrylic for the matte varnish to attach to, rather than the transfer material. One of the reasons transfers stand out so much is because when you go to varnish it, you're like varnishing the transfer material. You're not varnishing an acrylic material, which is all the paint around it. So if you put an acrylic material over the transfer, which gloss varnish is, then when you go to matte varnish, it has the same effect on the acrylic material over the transfer as it does on the paint around it, and that's when it blends in and looks so nice and natural and clean, and it looks painted on, right, which is the gold. And now I'm going to come back, a little bit of matte varnish, boom, look at that, that just disappeared. So now you can kind of see the edges on that scarab transfer. A little bit of matte varnish. I'm just hitting it with air to let it dry out. Boom. Painted on. And as they say, voila. Cool play. Well, that went well. Stoked about that. Okay. Now, we move on to the other fun part of this whole endeavor, which is a little bit of weathering. We're not going to do a ton, especially this is a little tricky. Not going to do a ton of weathering. And we're not going to do any like scratching or anything. Thousand Stones are one of those legions that benefit from some weathering, but not like too much weathering. So keeping that in mind, and you know, a little sponging goes a long way at this scale. So keeping that in mind, we're going to get the palette out. I can get this green background out of the way here. Get the palette out. A little bit of tinny tin here. Okay. That's way too much for our purposes today, but that's fine. A little bit of black. And this is just my standard chipping. The tinny tin kind of softens it. It gives it a bit of a metallic feel. And now with this scheme, we're going to have to be very careful with the sponging, because this could get out of hand quickly, and it could make this tank will kind of look like shit, which of course is not what we want. So a little bit of the sponge, get most of the paint off, and then real lightly just down across those parts that would get the most kind of wear and tear, which is going to be, you know, the bottoms of these panels, and then kind of the door there, bottom here, and then kind of the back. But I mean, maybe a little bit around the door, maybe a little bit around kind of the top there. But that's really it. So we're going to kind of stop it there. I mean, really working in this scale is like one drop of paint for this, one drop of paint for that. And let's get this focus worked out here. There. Now you can see a little bit better this chipping along the bottom here. And then for the over chipping, we're actually going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to get this silver metallic here. Let's go over to the palette cam here. We get this silver metallic. And I'm actually going to get, oops, that's not it. Scale 75 Ink Tense Crimson. And so this is an extremely saturated and powerful red ink. And I'm going to make like a tinted metallic here. And we're going to see how this works because it can't just be silver. It'll stand out too much. And it can't be just like a matte red. It would be the only matte thing on the model, really, except for like the transfer. And so we're going to make kind of a pink tinted metallic. And mind you, this is going to get toned down by the oil wash as well. So let's get back, kind of zoom in here. Not zoom in, but get the focus. And then just very lightly okay, I do hope that gets toned down just a little bit, because that has the potential to take over the scheme. So you want to be very, very careful. I guess I could have gone a little lighter on or a little darker on the metallic that I used, rather than just like pure silver. I don't know. It doesn't look bad. The oil wash is gonna tone that down just a little bit too. And then we could even do a little bit around the hatch up here, because that's going to get some wear and tear. A little bit about the front, just kind of like a faux, sort of like a faux edge highlight. Just a little hint of it there. I don't know. I think that'll work just fine. And that's really where I want to leave it. I don't want to do more than that. Like I said, this can be overdone really easily. I think that is pretty good. I think that's going to work just fine. It looks a little chipped. It looks a little banged up, which, of course, it's a forward operating assault tank. That's going to happen. So when we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to do an overall oil wash, varnish, and then a little bit of scorching, a little bit of pigment. So we'll finish up this model. I'm going to be doing part 3 of the 8mm scale Epic Horus Heresy tutorial for Thousand Suns. And we're going to be covering this is some scorching, the oil wash, and some pigment work. So first things first, we're going to grab Liquitex Gloss Varnish, my go-to. No thinning required.
The thing.
Oh, sorry. Way to tear in. And give it just a nice. I'm not avoiding the metallics, but I'm not going out of my way to do the tracks either. The tracks are going to get an oil wash as well. So, but I want a nice coat on the armor, especially for Thousand Suns, where I don't want the oil to really have an effect on the finish of the armor itself. I really just want to use it for a pin wash. So having a nice glossy surface is going to facilitate that. So I'm going to let that cure for not long. I mean, I'll get the hair dryer out. I mean, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I'm impatient. So we'll be back in just a second. Okay, now that we let that cure, I'm going to grab a couple of oil washes here. The first one is going to be my typical dark oil wash. This is black and burnt umber. And the second one is my Blood Angels red wash that I use for pin washing. It's a violet, like a dark violet, that I feel works really, really well for red. So this is violet and this mix together. And I think a little raw umber in there. I'll put a link in the description on how to make an oil wash for pin washing, because I just make them and then keep them, and then they're ready to go, whenever I need them. Looks like I need to make more. Oh, because I spilled this. That's right. When I was doing the nights, my feral nights, I spilled this wash, which was not great. So just this on the tracks, just to give it a little. That purple on the violet on the tracks would really show up. Reading that purple, where it shows up more kind of like a soft shadow on the red. So I just want to be mindful of. That's why it's nice to have these little pots, so I can just use whichever one, and then I'm not making them each time. And because they seal. So I just pop the top, and after a little shake, they're ready to go. I'm going to do an overall wash. Not too heavy. But you can see like how that sits down in those recesses. It's just great. Just great. And that's really going to help pull out a lot of that detail, especially at this scale. It's going to help a lot. It's a nice little bit of grit, that Horus Heresy grit, and then just pulling out some of that detail. I really hope this game comes back and we get some plastics, because if they're anything like Aeronautica Imperialis, which I assume they would be, the detail is just going to be insane. So I'm going to let this dry. It's going to take, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be the driest wash ever, because it's just going to be for pin washing, but I'm going to let it dry for a couple, like maybe 5-10 minutes. Then I'm going to hit it with the hairdryer just to dry it fully, and then we'll come right back. Come right back to wipe some of that off. So we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so now that that's completely drying, I'm going to get some Artist White Spirit and my handy dandy Q-tip here. I just poured a little in the cap because I'm not going to need that much for such a small model. And then you can see this is the super fun part here. You can see that oil wash just comes right off. But it stays in the recesses, and that is the entire point to using an oil wash. Is that right there. Really nice definition on those panels, but I still have that nice sheen because of that gloss varnish. Perfect. And just real quick, take the rest of this off. Get to of course, get the tracks as well. And because it's 1,000 Suns and it's a little bit cleaner scheme, I really want to make sure that I do a pretty thorough job here. So you get that nice shiny red. Armor is the feature, not the wash, right? So but that really darkened those tracks big time. Perfect. Looks good. So yeah, that Nuln oil, definitely not necessary. No, we're still lifting. Definitely not necessary. And this will evaporate pretty quick. And then so we're going to let that evaporate, dry out of the recesses, and then we'll be right back to do a little scorching. So we'll be back in just 1 second. All right, we're back. And scorching's fun. Scorching at this scale is a little bit different. It's a little bit crazy, I guess, but it works. So just the standard Dalarowny FW. I'm using burnt umber and black. You can use, any kind of like sepia or burnt umber ink in black ink. It doesn't have to be Dalarowny. Dalarowny's just, cheap. And it has a good transparency to it, which is really one of the things I really like about it. And then I'm going to use a quick mask so that I don't have to like tape anything off. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide this behind the guns here. Spray kind of towards the front of the tanks so that any excess is ending up on the paper. And then I have on this side, I can just spray because it's all the excess is going away from the tank. Same thing here. I'm going to get this. That's too. You really want like cardstock, like a business card is the best thing to use. But paper, also works. The important thing is to control the direction of the spray. So I want to make sure that I'm spraying away from the rest of the tank. Like so. And then the same thing over here. And then spray away. The vent on the back, just give it a nice little, and then the same thing on the exhaust. Take the piece of paper. This one's a little trickier. Yeah, there's a little overspray. I mean, it's not, it's not the end of the world. It's just not ideal. Just trying to get that. The exhaust is a little ambitious maybe, but have fun with it. Like, the scale is so small that a little snafu here or there is not the end of the world. I'm going to grab some of this black ink now. A couple drops is all you really need. And ideally, if the game gets remade, ideally you'd be batch painting these, right? That's the brass ring. Is like batch painting Spartans, which just sounds like so much fun. So, all the drying times and all that stuff is kind of moot. If you're doing 4 or 5 of these, 6 of these at a time. One can only hope. One can only hope. There we go. Spray away from the tank. And there we have just nice scorched gun barrels. Get the vents. And the exhaust stacks. A little bit ended up on the back of the cupola there, but whatever. Little shading, just a little shading. And then I'm actually going to go a little next level here. And I'm going to do one more layer of... actually, I'll do that after I have a couple of varnish. So, okay, I have a couple of varnish things that I want to do first. So first things first, going to give it an overall matte varnish. And that's just to kill all the gloss and everything, lock everything down that's been done so far. So we're going to do that one first. Nice even coat, nothing crazy. We really want to knock all of this down and just seal everything, get everything locked in. Okay. Now we can look after the armor. Let's get these out of the way. To keep that mysterious kind of shiny, shimmery red, I'm going to use a little AK satin. 1 second, I'm going to hit this with the hairdryer just to make sure it's all... Okay, so you can see there's a little bit of shimmer to that, and it looks pretty good. Pretty good. Like, you could be done there, really. But, you know, we could go a little bit further. A little bit further. I think that's why we're here. So, and this is satin varnish, so not quite gloss, not quite matte, somewhere in between. And this is going to put... I'm trying to avoid the scorching. And that's really about it. I'm not... Because the scorching should be matte. But the tracks aren't a big deal. If I hit I'm not going to go out of my way to get the tracks, but if I hit the tracks, it's no big deal. Now you can see it's not quite gloss, but compared to like the shimmer on this side to that little bit of shimmer on that side, one is very much a candy, kind of a candy coat, and one is just like a little hint of shimmer. So I think for Thousand Suns, I think that candy coat works. I think that's appropriate. There we are. Now, we just have 2 more quick things, and then we are finished with another spark. And this will work for, I want to say like 99% of, Thousand Suns vehicles that you would paint for Epic. Like, it's not, there's not a ton of variation, which is nice. When you're painting Epic, one of the advantages, well, you can find variation, of course. Certain units, I think black is a really underrated, like, alternative color scheme for Thousand Suns, things like that. But Vallejo Splash Mud acrylic weathering effects. Is this sealed? Do I have 2 of these? No, it's just being a pain. Okay. Cool. So just a little tiny drop of that. Now, okay. So a little bit of the light brown splash mud, and this matches the basing scheme for what I want to do pigment wise, which is kind of a lighter, dusty, kind of sandy palace. But that gives a nice dusting just along the bottom. I'm not going to do it around the whole track, but just around the bottom, it gives that nice bit of dust. Perfect. I've done it on, my Blood Angels tanks, the ones that don't hover. And it's just a really nice touch of that military modeling kind of aesthetic that is a nice attention to detail, especially at this scale. So, put that away. That doesn't really need to be varnished. That'll be fine. It's pretty durable. Very durable, actually. I'm going to grab a couple pigments, and then I'll be right back in just 1 second. Okay, and we're back. And what we're doing right now is we're just going to do a quick pigment wash on the tracks. And we are going to be done. So, 1 second. Okay, so I just have a synthetic brush here. And I have a little bit of isopropyl alcohol. And I don't know why I've never thought of this before. This is just a base. A little bit of isopropyl in there. A little bit of isopropyl in there. And then these are Secret Weapon Miniatures pigments, but the actual pigments, you know, they don't really matter. I'm going to use yellow earth and clay brown. I think that's very kind of dust of the Imperial Palace. Ooh, that yellow earth is not it. Clay brown definitely, because it has kind of a pinkish hue, which is very much kind of dust of the palace. And then burning sands. We'll go with burning sands. Which is just kind of, you know, yellow, desert yellowy. Get some of that into the isopropyl, and the isopropyl is going to act as a fixer as well. Do not need a lot of this, so I don't want to tap that out. You just need a little bit of the clay brown. Clay brown is really like one of my favorites. It's a shame about Secret Weapon, but I have a little bit of this stuff left. And I'm going to use it. So, just a quick isopropyl wash. And because I'm doing it as a wash and not a dry pigment, it'll really sit down in the recesses. And it'll evaporate pretty quick. It's just easy to work with. It's an easy way to do this. A little bit of that burning sands. But be careful. Like, if you can see it, kind of built up, it's going to be really built up when it evaporates, so you just want to be a little careful with it, like so. I think that should probably be good. Turn off the 1 second. Okay, so you see I just hit that real quick with the hair dryer, and that isopropyl really evaporated a lot. So now we have that wonderful pigment just sitting down in the tracks. The tracks are still a little kind of above where we want them to be, a little over a little too much pigment on the tracks. And we're maybe losing some of the texture of the tracks. So I get to do one of my favorite things, and then we're done. And one of my favorite things is the finishing touch. Metallic iron pigment. I could paint tanks for the rest of my life and probably never go through this stuff. You literally just touch it with your finger, and then wipe. Try not to hit the tank, but it gives a metallic. It picks out the raised areas there on the tracks and gives them a little bit of a metallic, dark metallic sheen. There, you can see there. It's the coolest. It's the coolest. I love it. It's so easy to just be like, oh, tracks are done. Look at that. Nope, tracks are done. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Thanks for playing. And this model's done. That was it. That was it for weathering and all that stuff. And we have a really nice tank here. That dusting, the pigments in the tracks. It's just a great look. Just a great look. Super happy with that. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you found it useful for all your Horus Heresy Space Wizard needs. I'll get some final pictures taken, get those up attached to this post, perhaps, if I remember. But I think this thing looks pretty good. Pretty good. So I'm excited. So thank you again for all of your support. And we'll see you again soon for another epic 8mm scale Horus Heresy. I mean, this stuff is just too much fun for words. So I'm going to keep doing it. So thank you again. Let's get a final look here. Look at that. Super, super cool. So thank you again. Take care. Be well. Paint happy. And the Emperor protects.